Welcome everybody. Thank you very much for joining us for our weekly Chassidus class in English, Tuesday night at 7:30, right here in Yerushalayim, the greatest place in the world. What we've been learning since we started the beginning of this discourse, we're learning now the mimer of the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Chabad Rebbe. The sefer is called Derech Mitzvotecha, the ways of your mitzvot, and he chose some 30 or 40 mitzvot, and he wrote an explanation for them according to the teachings of Chassidut. Right now we're learning the mitzvah of Ahavat Yisroel, to love every single Jew, and also the prohibition of not to hate any Jew. And we've been learning about the subject about how it's possible to bring ourselves towards this great mitzvah of Ahavat Yisroel. And in the previous mimer we learned, based on what the Arizal says, excuse me, that we have to view each other, that the entire Am Yisrael is built up like one human being. We're one unit. Some of us are like the head, some of us are like the eyes, some of us are like the body, some of us are like the feet, etc. But we're all part of one unit. So just like you're not going to have one hand punch the other hand because it doesn't like the mistake that it did, because we're all part of one unit, so too we should view another Jew as also being part of ourselves. And that is also what we learned last week in great detail, where we find a similar concept by Adam HaRishon, the first human being. He had a neshama, a great neshama, such a great neshama that it included all of the neshamot of all the generations to come. So once again, we have this example of many details being part of one unit. So if we're all part of one unit, there's nothing to fight about. Only respect we should have for one another. Now we're at the bottom of page 17 in the English version of Derech Mitzvotecha, volume 1. Page 17. We have the copies over here. And as soon as we have the Sfarim will come to Israel, we'll be able to use them and purchase them, Bezrat Hashem. We're going to explain now another similar idea of how we can view each other and all of us as being part of one unit. Up until now, we discussed how we can try to view each other as being part of one unit of the people that we see or the people that we heard about. Now we're going to try to see how can we view ourselves as being part of one unit as far as in Hashem, in the spiritual level. After all, before our neshamas came down to this world, they were all like one unit under Hashem's throne. All one chunk. We're all one being. So now we're going to get a little bit Kabbalistic, and we're going to try to view ourselves, to elevate ourselves a little bit above where we are, and to see ourselves from a different prism of how we are, how we were, we also are still above the way Hashem looks at us, from above, which is the truth. The way we look at each other is sort of a reality that we look, a perspective from our perspective. But we look from Hashem's perspective, that is definitely the ultimate perspective. V'hine, page 17 at the bottom. V'hine mevoar b'makom acher. Behold, it is explained in another place. Be'inyan Adam de la'ela. Adam de la'ela, man of above. In other words, we say, Na'aseh Adam. Hashem said right in the beginning when He created man, Hashem said to the angels and all of the other spiritual creations, Na'aseh Adam, let us make man. B'tzalmeinu, in our form, kidmuteinu, like our image. In other words, we're not the real man. We are created like the upper man, so to speak. The Adam de la'ela, the man of above, quote unquote, is not does not have physical features, is not the way we know man, human being, to be, but we call it, for the lack of any other description, man of above. That the sublime man is identified with the divine name Ma, whose numerical value is 45. There are several names of Hashem. For practical purposes, I'll introduce two names of Hashem. These names are less known. They are more known in the Kabbalistic realm. One is the name of Ma, Memhe, as if in the Hebrew, Ma, what is it? And the other one is Ban. Ban, Bet Nun, Ban. Generally speaking, the name of Hashem of Ma represents spirituality. Down here, like, what relationship, how can we understand this lofty concept of Ma and the other lofty concept of Ban? So let's try to think of it in practical terms. It's hard to relate it to practical terms because we're talking about the most sublime concepts. But let's try for a second. We can all understand that in this world we have, generally speaking, two concepts. We have the divine, the spiritual, and then we have the materialism. Not necessarily bad. Materialism can lead a person to negative things, but it's not a bad thing. It's Hashem created it. So it's materialism. You have this in many scenarios in the creation of Hashem. For example, a human being. A human being is made up of two. Please help me out. Of two components. One component is the neshama. That's the spiritual element, and then you have the body, the materialistic element. What is the source of all spirituality, including the neshama? That is the name of Ma. The name of Hashem, Ma, which is the numerical value, is 45. Then the source of all materialism is Ban, which, by the way, Ban is the numerical value of 52. The Nun is 50 and the Bet is 2. And it's the same numerical value as a different word, Behema. Bet is 2, Mem is 40. There are two Heys. Bet Hey, Mem Hey. Two Heys, each Hey is 5, times 2 is 10. So 42 plus 10, 42 plus 10 equals 52. So you have 40 Behema, which is related to the whole idea of the animal soul. Do you remember we've talked about many times that you have the godly soul, the nefesh ha'elokit, and then you have the animal soul, which is the nefesh ha'behemit, like behemah. So once again, I'm just trying to lay down the foundation. You have spirituality. The human being is made up. Each human being is made up of spirituality, some kind of neshama. And then you have the materialism, which is the body. And so the source of the body and all materialism in the world is the name of Ban. What does it mean that Hashem has a name? Hashem has many names. A name, just like when you need to express yourself to someone else, and a person wants to call you, so you have a name. Moshe, yeah, Moshe, what do you want? He turns around. So too, in each, Hashem expresses himself to us in many ways. Sometimes it's how he relates to us, how he creates the world, how he treats the world, and sometimes it's all spiritual, just totally chesed, gevurah, tiferet. It's all spiritual. And so these names also refer to, on a general note, to how we express how we relate to this bond between how that everything is made up of spirituality and also materialism. Okay, I just want to point out that just like I said about the Ban the name of Hashem, which refers to materialism and the animal soul, also on a spiritual note, notice that the name of Hashem is Ma. What does Ma mean? Ma means what? So what is what? What does it mean the name is what? The word what represents, especially in Hebrew, Ma represents almost like humility, to be humble. As if to say, what am I anyways? Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron said in the Parshat Korach, we're going to read it in about 5 weeks, two words, V'nachnu ma, and we are what? They were trying to express that they're nothing, and they were the ultimate tzaddikim of all generations, Moshe and Aaron. How did they express how humble they felt? They said, we are ma, we are what? So in English, or for us human beings, it represents perhaps a very low level. We could feel like we're nothing. Like, well, what are we anyways? We're zero, we're nothing. But in spirituality, it's actually the highest thing possible. That a tzaddik, who is the epitome of spirituality that the way we know it to be in this world, is not saying I'm nothing. He's just saying, what am I? In other words, I don't feel myself. The tzaddik is special, but he doesn't take the credit for himself. He says, well, what did I accomplish? Well, what do you mean, what do you accomplish, Moshe, for example? You gave us the Torah, you took us out of Mitzrayim, you split the sea, just to name a couple of unbelievable accomplishments, and then you say, what are we? Who are we? The answer is that he didn't deny that he did those great things mentioned above. What he was saying is, it wasn't me with my characteristics. I'm such a great guy that I did these miracles for you. It wasn't me. It was Hashem working through me. So I'm nothing. I'm just a funnel, and Hashem acted through me. I can't take the credit for something that I didn't do. Just because Hashem chose me to be the catalyst to relate to you what he wants doesn't mean that I'm anything. So we look at it as, what do you mean? You're unbelievable. You're a big tzaddik. But it's so nice that he was able to look at himself and to say about himself and Aaron, V'nachnu ma, who are we? And so this, V'nachnu ma, what does it basically mean? That us, Moshe and Aaron, they were clearly connected to Hashem to the extent that they could tell their connection to the name Ma of Hashem. That the name of Hashem Ma was able to shine through them. So in fact, it's not a negative thing, or it's not a condescending thing that they're saying about themselves, that they're nothing. All he was saying is that we, whether he meant it or not, in other words, what I meant to say is that whether he had in his mind the name Ma or not, that's what I meant to say. The fact is that he was connected clearly to the spirituality of that great name of Hashem. So we started to say about this Adam de La'ela. We're now at the top of page 18. Adam de La'ela, the sublime man. Just like we said earlier, in an example of where you have a blending of the name of Ma and Ban down here in the human being, for example. You have the neshama and the body. The neshama is the soul that comes from, that is the spiritual part, and the body is the materialistic part of the person. So too, above, you have these concepts. There's no physical chas v'shalom man above. It's all spiritual. And this Ma and Ban are related to another subject, which is the idea of, we have two worlds. We have the world of Tikkun, which is the world that we are in, which is a fixed world, where all of the Sfirot are are all inclusive of each other, like we do in the Sfirat Omer, Chesed of Chesed, Gevura of Chesed, and so on. And then you have the name of then you have the concept of the world of Tohu, of chaos, which is the world that we had before Hashem created this world. And over there, the Sfirot were, each one was on its own level, and then it crashed because the world couldn't be sustained. We have to have harmony in the world. We can't have where each individual stands for itself. So let's read the first paragraph on page 18. This concept is based on a pattern in Torah numerology called Milui. So for example, you have the letter Aleph. You see one letter Aleph, and then you want to spell out the word Aleph. You have three letters: Aleph, Lamed, final Fe. Aleph. So you have the main letter, that's the letter Aleph. But if you want to spell it out, it's called the Milui. It's like the fill-in, if you will. So sometimes we refer to the letter Aleph when you want to do numerical value or other reasons. You use just Aleph, which the numerical value is number 1. But sometimes we include also the Milui. We also include the fill-in to spell out the entire word. Aleph, Lamed, final Fe. So for example, if you want to do the Gematria, the numerical value, you'll do Aleph is 1, the Lamed is 30, and the Pei is 80. So it's 111. Aleph is 111. And so on in many. So now we're going to touch upon Hashem's holy name of the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey. Let's see it inside. Called Milui, in which the name of the letter of each letter of a word is spelled out, like I told you, Aleph. And the numerical values of all the letters in these spellings are added together. So let's take the name for a second. The name of Hashem, Yud and a Hey and a Vav and a Hey. The Yud is 10, the Hey is 5, the Vav is 6, and the Hey is 5. What's the numerical value? 10, 5, 6, and 5? 26. 26, thank you, is the numerical value of Shem Havaya, of the name of Hashem. But now we're going to try to open up each letter. So the Yud is not just that little Yud. The Yud is Yud Vav Dalet. Spells out Yud. So the Yud, the letter Yud is 10, the Vav is 6, and the Dalet is 4. So how much do we have? What's the numerical value of the full spelling of the letter of the word Yud? Not the letter Yud, the word Yud? 20. Thank you. Let's continue middle of the third line. The name Havaya is made up of 4 letters. Yud, and then a Hey. I'm not saying it consecutively. And then Hey. See, notice how Yud, and then a Hey, and then a Vav, and then a Hey. Because we're not allowed to say all 4 letters one after the other. They're in the book, they're writing it. But we're saying it, we can't say it. These letters may be spelled in different ways, with each spelling yielding a different numerical value. The numerical value of Havaya, when spelled as Yud and a Hey and a Vav and a Hey, equals 45. Or Ma, the name Ma. The numerical value of Adam, man Adam, is also 45. Okay, so if you look for a second, please, at the way it's spelled. It's easier to explain it when you see it inside. The Yud, remember I told you it's spelled out Yud and a Vav and a Dalet. Right? Then look at the letter Hey. What's after the letter Hey? The word Hey, it's spelled with 2 letters. What's the second letter of the word Hey? Aleph. Hey, Aleph. Now, it can also be spelled with another Hey. Hey can be, the word Hey can be spelled Hey, Hey. It also can be spelled, I think, Hey, Yud. But right now, it's being spelled Hey, Aleph. Then the next word is, how do you spell the word Vav? Please help me out. It says it right here in the alphabet. Vav. Excellent. Vav, Aleph, Vav. It can also be spelled, just to bring a point across, without the Aleph. Just Vav, Vav is also Vav. And that's going to be a different Gematria. and that's going to teach us something else. Right now, for all practical purposes, we want to get to the numerical value of 45. So far we have Yud Vav Dalid, that's 20. Hey and Aleph is 6, so we have 26. Vav is Vav Aleph Vav, 6, 1, 6 is 13. So 26 plus 13, please help me out.
39.
39. And then we have the last word is the word Hey. Once again, we spell it Hey Aleph. 5 and 1 equals 6. How much is 39 plus 6?
45.
Thank you. So that's the Ma. When we talk about the name Ma, it's not just a name. You can see beautifully how it's brought out within Hashem's name. Yud and a Hey and a Vav and a Hey. If you spell it in a certain way, if you spell out the word, each letter, in a certain way, the numerical value will come out to 45. And this is also the numerical value of Adam. Adam, the Aleph is 1, the Dalet is 4, and the Mem Sofit, the final Mem is 40. What's the total? 45, thank you. So now, let's continue. So we said in the previous page, Shu B'chinat Shema de Tikkun. This is the name Ma of Tikkun. We're continuing on the same page. Tikkun, like I said earlier, is this world which is all the different elements are supposed to be blended together. Sheyu Hayud Sfirot Klulim Zamizeh. In the spiritual frame of reference that this name brings into being, all 10 Sfirot are interrelated. We can relate to that now, as we said earlier, that now we're counting the Sfirat HaOmer, and we understand better how all the different names, how all the different Sfirot can be interrelated. Shechesed yeh kalul migvura, ugvura michesed v'kayotze. For example, that Chesed contains Gevura, and Gevura contains Chesed within it, and the like. Mash'en kin b'tohu. However, in the world of Tohu, like I said earlier, the world of chaos, before the Tikkun, the Sfirot were in a state of separation. Hayu b'b'chinat pirud zeh tachat zeh, each one positioned under the other. So we had the Chachma, Bina, Dat, Chesed, Gevura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yisod, Malchut. Since I'm sitting opposite you, so I'll do it the way you're looking. So right now, there are different ways, but generally speaking, the way this is made up, this is Chanoch will appreciate this, and also Mordechai and Raya that helped to put together his brochure. You have the Chachma on the right, for you, the Chachma on the right, then Bin on the left, and then Dat in the middle, like a segel, 2 dots and 1 in the middle, a little lower, and then you have the Chesed on the right, Gevura on the left, and Tiferet in the middle. Netzach, Hod, Yisod, and then Malchut is also in the middle. Okay? So, we have over here Ma. It's all spiritual, name of Hashem. It represents spirituality, but not in a way that can go over the deep end. Rather in a way that's built in a healthy way, in a strong way, in a way that has a long-term lasting. This paragraph in the middle, in contrast, in the realm of Tikkun, the Sfirot are arranged in 3 columns, enabling integration between them. That's what I just told you a moment ago. You have the Chachma, Chesed, and Netzach. In Kabbalah, it's called Chachan. It's an abbreviation for Chachma, Chesed, and Netzach. Then on the left side, because that's where you're sitting opposite me, so left side you have Bina, and you have the Gevura, and you have the Hod, that's called Baga. It's the Rashi Tevot abbreviation. And in the middle, you have the Dat, and the Tiferet, and the Yisod, and the Malchut. Sometimes we include it with the Malchut, sometimes we don't. So it's either Dati or Datim. I think it's... in any case, let's move on. This integration of the Sfirot and Tikkun is brought about by drawing down influence from the divine name Ma from the forehead of the sublime man. Shu b'chinat Ein Sof. This emanation from the divine name Ma is Ein Sof, infinite. HaKolel Kol HaIshtalshalut, and comprises the entire chain-like progression Upratei Nimtzaim of worlds and realms, Ki Mimcha HaKol K'tiv, as well as all the individual beings, as it is written, for everything is from you. I guess it's missing one line or so. Page 19. V'lachen hu hagorem gam ken inyan ha'tkalalut. Hence, it brings about their interrelation, even after they have each emerged into their particular revealed aspects. Acharei yetziatam al hagilui kol achad v'achad b'fnei atzmo. So, what's the benefit of having hitkalalut, where all the midot are interrelated, that even after it's manifest into the world and you can't necessarily tell the lofty and spiritual levels that they're related to, they still remain intact. They still remain united. So let's use the terminology that we've learned last week and the week before. We talk about the neshama, that we all, true, at one point we were all by Hashem's throne, and then we became, quote-unquote, separated. So if we choose to view each other as the way we were all once in one unit, literally, then it's wonderful, because then we're not looking at each other the way we've come down into individual entities, rather the way we were in our source. So here's the point. If the source is healthy and strong and united, then even the way it becomes separated afterwards when it becomes manifest. For example, when our neshamas come down into this world, we can still remain united because the foundation is healthy. So therefore the branches and the fruit that come out of it are also healthy. The concept of unity between discrete qualities is often taken for granted without focusing on the conceptual difficulty involved. If the entities are different and even opposite in nature, how can they be joined together? Look at us, we're all separate individuals. What's the common denomination? This is particularly true after the qualities have emerged from the potential states and have taken on their own identities. Our ma'amar, our discourse, is explaining that this unity results from the influence of the infinite dimension of Hashem's name, who is Milui, is Ma. So because our neshamas, which their source is in Ma, as we explained earlier, our bodies are their source from Ban. Fine, that's like animal. That we can understand why they're all separated. But Ma is the name Ma of Hashem represents unity, that everything is together. We're not separate entities. Our neshamas are all part of one unit. That's true achdut. We come from Hashem's name. This is our spiritual source. So because the name of Ma is unity, we can also experience unity, even so much to say as the same unity, even though it's a high level. But we can, if we look at ourselves the way we are in our source. The second half of page 19. It's very appropriate. Tomorrow night it's going to be like Balmer. And so it's very important that we read the Zohar and we learn about, so that the Tikkunei Zohar is part of the Zohar. We say it in the Patach Aliyah that we mentioned a couple of weeks ago, that we say every Friday evening right before Shabbat, and explaining the discourse of the Zohar in the parasha of Yitro, that all of the days receive their blessing from Shabbat. Just like by Shabbat, we have two ways of of looking at Shabbat. Either that all of the days of the previous week lead up to Shabbat, or that Shabbat is the blessing for all the next days. In the Talmud, we also have such a concept on a lower scale, but the Zohar says it clearly. Mine mitbarchin kulu yomin. This is in Aramaic. Mine, from Shabbat, all of the future days are blessed. That's a very nice concept. What does that mean? You might want to, in the context that we're learning about right now, let's think of this as follows. As follows. We have the Shabbat. It's a holy day. And just like we said last week about Adam HaRishon and his neshama included within himself, within itself, all of the neshamot of all generations to come, so too, every Shabbat on a detailed level includes in itself all the days to come. That's why we say on Sunday, Hayom Yom Rishon B'Shabbat, the first day of the week. But it means also B'Shabbat, from Shabbat itself. Hayom Yom Sheni, today is Hayom Yom Shlishi, tomorrow is Hayom Yom Revi'i B'Shabbat. Because as the time goes along, we are bringing the Shabbat of the previous week into every day of our daily dealing matters. The same thing is by the Shemitah. This year we have the Shemitah, especially over here in Eretz Yisroel. So it's not like it's separated. You have the Shemitah year, the sabbatical year, and then the 6 years of working, and we forget about the Shemitah. No, it's like the Shemitah is like a Shabbat. So it's both that we're preparing for the next Shemitah, but in our context, we are continuing from the previous Shemitah. So right now we're in Shemitah. We're not just meant to focus our bitachon, our trust in Hashem on a greater level than every year, but we have to infuse the upcoming 6 years with a greater level of bitachon in Hashem, of trust and certainty in Hashem, than the prior 6 years, which came from the previous Shemitah and preparing us for this year. So once again, we have the idea of, you look at the source. In the source, it's all united. You can't tell the difference between them, let's say between all the days of the week, because it's all Shabbat. Shabbat it's all inclusive. It's all holy. Then when it starts unfolding, that's the kunz. That's the chachma. That's the trick, if you will. I don't know if it's proper. I think it's the best translation of kunz, right? Tzvi. That's the trick. The trick is to be able to keep up that energy that we had in the source as it is unfolding. Whether you're talking about the way our neshamas were up high before it came down to the bodies, whether you're talking about every Shabbat, whether you're talking about every Shemitah, on many levels we have this concept where you have a source. In the source, it's all wonderful, it's holy, it's spiritual, but the trick is to be able to draw that special atmosphere into the details which are going to come forth from that source. The branches, the fruit, the leaves. That should also have the sweetness and the beauty of the source. Period. Okay. So on the bottom of 119, I'm sorry, the bottom of 19. So too will be understood similarly how all the souls of Israel shehem koma shlema biachad, collectively comprise one complete entity. The soul of Adam, like we said last week, which is their general, all-embracing identity. Although the soul contains 248 distinct limbs, quote unquote, these have exact parallels in contemporary medical terminology. This mimer focuses primarily on the 248 Evarim, which refer to 248 positive commandments, the spiritual energy they generate. So just like we have in the Torah, we have the Torah, that's the source. From the Torah come the 613 mitzvot. the 248 positive mitzvot, which are compared to the limbs of the body, and the 365 prohibitive mitzvot, which can be compared to the 365 arteries of the body. So it comes from the source, that's the Torah, and then it branches off. Once again, we have the source and the branching off. So is anybody going to say, hey, this finger is going to fight against the other finger? Or the finger of the hand is going to fight against the toe? That's ludicrous to say that. It's obvious that we're all part of one unit. So true, on one hand you have the details. But don't get carried away with the details. We always have to keep in mind that all of these details come from one source. I'll give you another example. The Alter Rebbe talks about in the Tanya, chapter 41. He says that we have to think about Hashem every moment of the day. By the way, one of the advantages of someone who is in the worldly workforce, as opposed to someone who learns Torah all day, which is an amazing zchut to be able to sit in a yeshiva or a kollel or to teach Torah the entire day. Wow, what an amazing zchut. But everything has its advantage. Not to say, God forbid, that learning Torah all day is a disadvantage, but everything has an advantage. So it says in Chassidus something fascinating, that someone who works all day sees Hashgacha Pratit, divine providence, at every moment of the day more than he who learns all day, which doesn't mean that it's a bad thing to learn all day, it just means that it's a wonderful thing. You see Hashem at every step in your work, meeting people, bidiyuk, exactly at this moment you met this guy walking the street and the business deal was made, and so on and so forth. And so you have someone who learns Torah. Learning Torah, he has to think about Hashem. But if he thinks about Hashem every second, he's not going to be able to think about the Talmud, the Mishnah, the Tanya, whatever part of the Torah he's learning. So it says that once an hour, or once every little while, a half hour, whatever, stop for a second and think about the Noten HaTorah. He who gave the Torah. He who gives us the Torah. That's Hashem. So pause for a moment. That's why we say the bracha before learning Torah and every morning, and also we get the aliyah into the Torah. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, that Hashem chose us from all the nations. V'natan lanu Torato, and He gave us His Torah. Baruch Hashem, noten haTorah. He who gives us the Torah. So that's a very great. It's not only something special, but it's fundamental learning Torah. You can't learn Torah without saying this bracha beforehand. So we have the source, the foundation, which is thinking about Hashem, 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 every single moment. But then you have to, the same Hashem wants you also to learn, and also wants you to do work. So how do you think about Hashem every second? So when you're doing work, in a sense, like I said earlier, you can see Hashem at every moment. But I'm just trying to bring up the point across where every little while, whether it's once an hour, once a half hour, you stop for a second and you refocus to the most important part of your learning Torah, which is remembering that it's Hashem. So too, you see people around. We seem as if separate people. But every little while you say, 1 second, but we're all from the same source. So we're not separate. Or you look at the limbs of the body. Hey, there are 248 limbs. So they may be unrelated. No. Think for a second what's going on through your mind. What are you saying? What are you thinking? It's one body. Who cares about the different details? On the contrary, I think it's a compliment. I think it's a beautiful idea that there are so many details and they seem different and individual. And nonetheless, they can still come together. It's not kunz. It's not a trick. It's not a unique thing for something all spiritual to be united. All of our neshamas above, they're one big chunk. It's very nice, it's wonderful, but they're all spiritual, so naturally they're all one. But they can come down and seem like different entities and still be united. That is the trick. That is the wise, that's the chachma. And we can explain this analogy in so many different ways. We've just in the last 45 minutes, we've explained it in a number of ways, whether it's the human body or it's all of Am Yisrael's or neshamas together, or a tree, or the mitzvahs, the many mitzvahs. You can go on and on, in so many analogies, in so many points in our world, also in the spiritual world. You can bring out this analogy in so many ways, including marriage, education of children, in so many ways. So the top of page 20, beneath the line, Harehem klulim zemizeh. Nevertheless, these parts are interrelated, each containing the others. So don't say there are 248. It's true that 248, but the 248 parts of the same individual, of the same unit. Like we learned last week, like by ways of analogy, the human body. Even though the body consists of distinct limbs and organs, the head, feet, hands, nails, etc. Nevertheless, kol echad kalul mizulato. Each part incorporates all the others. There flows in the hand, through the interconnecting veins, something of the foot's vitality. So we know that the head contains within itself the organism for the entire body. But here's something fascinating, that a finger and a toe are not just two limbs of the same body, but there is something in the finger which resembles all the parts of the body. I believe that's where, I think the word is reflexology comes in, where through the foot, for example, they can touch and sometimes heal a place of the body that you would never imagine. That's one of the wondrous things of the world. We say, after going to the washroom, we say the bracha, that Hashem mafli, it's a wondrous human being, is a tremendous wonder. How everything, all the apparently billions of things moving together in the same exact moment, that's what keeps it going. So apparently the foot is not the only one. In many different parts of the body, if you're able to zoom in and to focus on the details of that limb, you can see many other, or perhaps all other limbs of the body within every limb. It's fascinating. Simply amazing. The same is true with regard to all other limbs and organs. The kanoda, as it's known, therefore, as is known, it is possible to cure one limb of the body by drawing blood from another, because of the intermingling of blood in the circulatory system. Apparently, you can also take out a vein from the leg and put it into the heart or another place of the body. And so it's amazing how it's not just one body, different places, but you can each one is literally interconnected. It's all part of one. It's missing a couple of words, so I'm just going to read it from the text on top of the line. And this interconnecting of the limbs of the body and in the life force of the soul, shabahem, which is in the limbs of the body, this comes from the source, this is the common denominator, this is the underlying point that we've been talking about from the beginning of this year. That as long as we can connect to the source, to the root of all the details, then we can hopefully reunite or unite or bring about how everything is all one, all inclusive. Now we're on top of 21. This general life force, which precedes the details, whether in time or in importance, in concept, shines forth within the brain. שממנו נתפרדו כל אחד לעצמו. And from it, all the particular qualities are diffused and individualized. והוא כולל כולם דרך משל היו לי כידוע. And whoever contains them all, just as, for example, the unformed, what's that word? Sorry. Heilig. Matter contains all the particular entities that come into being from it as it is known. For this reason, the brain feels the pain of all the 248 limbs. And generally, its perception of the pain of the arm, the leg, is identical. So, this is obviously the head feels the limbs more than each limb feels it feels the other one. But that's only because the head is the source. That's where everything comes from. The first part of the human body which is created is the head. So therefore, it is our challenge to be able to view all the details not as individual details, rather as details that all are part of one unit. That's the summary of today's shir. Thank you very much for joining us. Bezrat Hashem, you're welcome to join us Lag BaOmer, which is Thursday afternoon at 3 o'clock on Betzalel Street. We're starting over there this year at the Jara Bachar, Betzalel number 11. And we're going to be marching to the Evelina School. We're looking forward to seeing all of you. It's going to be a very, very special event. And connecting to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, especially us, we've been learning every week Baruch Hashem Chassidut. Looking forward, Bezrat Hashem, to continue learning together. All the best. This class has been dedicated generously by my brother Beryl Goldberg in memory of our late grandmother Chaya Sarah Bat Yecheskel.